Thank you for joining me. Behind me, I should say, you see the American flag. Over 225 years ago, we won our independence from the British, and if we had resided in complacency and apathy, said, oh, there's no point in fighting the British, they're too powerful, they have too much control, they have too much money, too much power, we can't beat them, then I probably wouldn't be speaking to you like I was, and I probably wouldn't be standing in front of this flag, because this flag wouldn't exist right now. Okay? That's the God honest truth, isn't it? I'd be speaking to you like this because most likely I'd be British or French or German or some other culture, and we may not have British accents. We could be still talking sort of like Americans, but in all likelihood the future would not be this. It would not be what we have now. Now back from 13 colonies to 50 states, we did that, and by virtue of the blood of the fallen who would give their lives for the future we now possess. There is debate out the wazoo about guns, how evil they are, destructive, dangerous. Well, let me start by saying the law is simple when it comes to guns. You have an unalienable right to keep and bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed. You also have a right to form a militia. I'm paraphrasing a little. You do not have to be in a militia to have arms. That's not their intent. That was not the intent of the law. It was to make sure you had the ability to protect your life and your property with whatever weapon you chose. Because let's face it, no two people are alike. So some person might like to be like Thor and take a hammer out and be all badass. Another guy might have throwing knives. A woman might like mace or a taser, or hell, a 30-30 on her back, or maybe a 30-06, whatever. Doesn't matter. People are different. Different weapons for different people. But arms was defined at one time as anything you could use to defend yourself and your rights. From who it didn't matter. Whether it be a criminal in a mask or your own government. That was the intent the founders had on the Second Amendment. And there is no subparagraph A, B, or C that would constitute what is an acceptable infringement. No. There is no registration. There is no background checks. That Second Amendment doesn't have a subclause. So how the hell did they get away with that one? Complacency. Willful ignorance, disinformation. There you go. Wrap that up and send it out. There's your answer. We don't blame this thing when you hit your finger with it. You don't blame the car when they hit somebody and kill them and there's a drunk driver behind the wheel. You blame the person. You blame yourself. You mess up on a calculator, push the wrong button. Well, guess what? The calculator didn't do it to you. So let's use logic here and push emotion away and examine this like we're a jury on in a court of law. The facts are that it is the people that pull the trigger. It is the people that refuse to obey the law and commit atrocities against one another, not the weapon. The weapon is not the problem. The arm is not the problem. It is the person. Now let's get over this gun debate and realize you have a right to own it. If you don't want to own one, that's fine, but don't you dare in hell or high water or God's green earth, whatever you want to say, tell me that I can't have mine, or she can't have hers, or that 80-year-old man can't pack his snub-nosed 38. You can go straight to you know where and stay there. Keep your head in the sand or your foot in your mouth, whatever, but don't you dare for even a second tell me that guns are bad and we should ban this gun or that gun because it looks scary. I won't have it, and neither should you. Logic dictates, facts dictate, and law dictates that we be rational here, people. Now let's move on from that whole gun debate on to another one. Global warming, climate change, whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't know about you, but when somebody tells me something once and then changes their story more than once, and each time it gets different, and they have to tweak things here and there just to make sure they got it right, they're probably talking out their ass or lying. CO2, carbon dioxide. Well, let's see. I remember high school biology, and I took AP and honors, so I think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Could be wrong. Feel free to correct me if I am. But CO2 is used in something called the carbon cycle, if memory serves, and that would be that carbon is produced by whatever means and is then taken in by the flora, fauna, the plants, the trees to use in photosynthesis. And then oxygen is churned out, and then it's taken in your car engine's intake and used in the fuel cycle and burns the oxygen with the gasoline mixture and pushes out carbon, and it all starts over again. Or you breathe it in and then you breathe out the carbon, and that takes into the plant again and again and again. Carbon cycle. You can Google it. Why would I lie? Okay? Second thing, if we got carbon down to zero, what would happen? Well, let's remember that space is not toasty and warm. It is freezing. Think of it this way. Earth is like a greenhouse. And it's 25 degrees outside the greenhouse. It's 60, 70 degrees inside the greenhouse. Okay? Pretty easy analogy to make this smaller. Don't have to, because I know you're smart. But just stick with it. Go with the flow. Greenhouse. Now, we take that and put it back into the science realm and say, how cold is it? It's, negative 273 degrees Fahrenheit, or close to absolute zero. I don't think it's exactly absolute zero, but PDQ it is. So what would happen if we got rid of the greenhouse gas? The greenhouse would get colder? Yeah, that sounds about right. The greenhouse would get colder. Could that be problematic? You bet. Now, one word, I can completely disprove global warming and climate change. Ready for this? 3, 2, 1. Super caldera. Pretty sure that's one word. I could be wrong about that too. I don't know, but I know super calderas. I believe there's at least 10 of them. Could be wrong about that. You can check my figures and then leave a comment. 10 super calderas on Earth. One I know for a fact, I've actually visited, was Yellowstone in Wyoming. Now, let's fast forward here. Super caldera, do you know what it is? No? Yeah? Maybe? I don't know. Super caldera is a super volcano. Think of your normal volcanoes like this guy right here. Look at him, he's so cute and harmless. And a super caldera is more like that. Okay? Let's say Yellowstone erupted. What would be the fallout from an eruption like that? Well, let's put it this way. You know where Wyoming is? If you don't, get a map, pause the video, do whatever you have to, but pinpoint Wyoming, Yellowstone National Park. Now, it's estimated that due to the wind patterns and where they blow, Pennsylvania could get 1 to 2 inches of ashfall. You can do the math on that. It's more than 300 miles, more than 600, maybe even more than 1,000. That's far. Now, what other damage does that cause? So, well, let's see. Global temperature drop when the ash permeates the atmosphere and forms a global cloud. Whew, that's dangerous, isn't it? How much has that ever happened before? Yeah. Well, I think the ballpark estimate is between 600 and 650,000 years. Almost, yeah. About 600,000 years, give or take. I think either that's Yellowstone or average eruptions of super calderas based on ice core samples and stratiformations, all this scientific mumbo jumbo you probably don't want to hear about. But basically they can look at the ice core and say this ice core is X time wise, and at these intervals, general intervals, you see ash in the ice core samples. Ash fell from the sky. And using that knowledge and the magnetism and the layers of strata around the super calderas, they can check the age, carbon dating, find out when this happened, when this fresh layer came, when this changed layer occurred. So basically find a rough estimate of when these things erupt, and they erupt. Okay? Super caldera. Well, you're saying, well, how does that disprove global warming? A super caldera does more damage in a few weeks than the human race could accomplish, except by thermonuclear war. And it takes between, estimated, at least 2 years, maybe if we're lucky, a year and 7 months, but maybe even more than 2 years, for the Earth to recuperate from a supercaldera eruption. So, try to argue that based on the science, and you can look it up, I'm no reason to lie again, and tell me how global warming is possibly dangerous to the human race or to this planet. Don't worry, I'll wait. Another thing, for God's sake, do not vote for Hillary. If you've got a vagina and you think that's a reason, I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, come on, you've got to have a brain. No offense, I really don't want to be a dick here, but let's put it this way. Anybody who would sell off uranium to Russia is probably somebody you don't want to vote for. Anybody who calls themselves broke when they can make several $100,000 every year just on speaking fees between her and her husband is a liar, untrustworthy, and will not champion against the 1% on behalf of the lower, the poor, and the middle class. Let's be frank, there shouldn't even be a class system. If I was president of the United States, I wouldn't see rich, poor, middle class, lower class. I would see people. And I would see their rights and whether or not they are violated or not. And based on that, I would act accordingly. I wouldn't say different tax brackets for the poor versus the ultra rich. I'd say flat tax. Say 10%, federal, state, and local, with the most amount of that percentage going to your local municipalities. The second largest part of that chunk goes to your Commonwealth, state, or republic. Then the third and tiniest part of that flat tax would go to the federal government to keep their power minimal. Because let's face it, money is power now. And don't even get me started on the fact that there's no such thing as money in the United States, because there's not. Oh wait, you didn't hear about that. Well, the fractional reserve banking, you might want to look that up. What is banking now? What is debt-based currency? Because let's be frank, if you know anything about history of the U.S. Constitution, you know that Congress should coin our money, not the private Federal Reserve. And you should also know, and I will tell you now, that it should be gold or silver based, not debt. Because, well, let's face it, when you have debt-based currency, it becomes a unit of measurement, like gallons, grams, milliliters, whatever. So when somebody says, I want $200 for that TV, $200 of what? Because you need to be able to quantify that amount. What is $200? It's not 200s or 450s. No, $200 should equal something. And if it only equals money, then what's its worth? Not a piss in the pot, that's what. I shouldn't have even gone there, but I did. There's so much more to this equation, this argument, that I could go on for hours, but you don't want me to. And let's face it, I don't want to waste your time. You probably are sick of me already, but that being said, we have potential to be the greatest nation on earth with this flag, because of the people that live here. The kindness, the ingenuity, the freedom, which is slowly slipping down the crapper. We would surrender safety and security we would surrender freedom or liberty for safety and security. Will deserve nor get either. And I believe that was Benjamin Franklin, one of our founders. We've done so much. Martin Luther King helped champion the civil rights movement, and Rosa Parks did too. Kudos to them. They deserve respect and admiration for what they did, not letting fear hold them back. Lead by example, and recognize the example set by others. The women who participated in the women's suffrage movement and won equal rights for themselves should also be commended, but with each win we had as an American people, as the African Americans did with Martin Luther King, as women did with those who participated in that civil rights movement, we have lost many more battles that were taking place behind closed doors and curtains. You can choose to remain ignorant, or you can stand up and do something about it, but it's your choice. From here on out, make it on a daily basis. When you see something wrong, say something. When you see somebody being abused, do something. When you get pulled over, whip out the cell phone and turn that thing on. Be polite and forceful, but not violent. We can change the way this country works, the way our world works, simply by changing ourselves a little at a time. And we can change it into something wonderful that we all can be proud of. But not if we sit on our couches rooting for our favorite team every Sunday and only working to pay the bills. That, for the most part, that check could have gone a lot further if we didn't let the government steal so much of our money. We went to war over taxes once. What happened to us? We're pussies now. Tell me, how does 3% on that tea get them so riled up that they're going to throw that tea into the river dressed like Indians, and we get more pissed off and more ruffled feathers about a dress that's two-toned and can't figure out which color it is? Give me a effing break. Sorry. I'm sorry. But it irks me to no end. And it boggles my mind how anybody could put freedom and liberty on the bottom drawer and everything else above that. What I've addressed so far, I hope you'll take to heart. You go ahead, do the research, find out for yourselves. Don't take my word for it. Rate, comment, subscribe, share, and be American. Be proud, be kind, be generous, be civil.